Let's get right to the point. I am not going to repeat any of the information or argumentation that I've already offered on this YouTube channel in videos such as the ones you see on the right-hand side of the screen right now. What I am going to do is confront you with the reality of what akathisia is in the human flesh, and you will understand immediately why it is that someone like Jordan Peterson would be driven to the brink of suicide when the psychiatric medications he's been taking make it impossible for him to sleep, impossible for him to walk. They make it impossible for him to sit at a computer and type at a keyboard without assistance. You will see what this mysterious symptom, akathisia, looks like.
My limbs twist in on each other, and it makes it quite difficult to stand still. I try very hard to stand still. This is what gets frustrating, you see, because the things that I like to do most, among them are things that require fine motor skills. I feel it very tensely in my chest. It's just very bizarre.
The misery and hopelessness of that condition, interrupting your daily life, interrupting your ability to walk, talk, sleep, type at a computer, or play a keyboard if you're a musician. The misery of that constant contortion, tension, interruption of your activities is made much worse by the awareness that the misery is not caused by a physical ailment. It's not caused by a car accident that damaged your nervous system. It's not caused by contracting a disease from a mosquito like malaria. No, it's caused by brain damage. And the brain damage you're experiencing is because of bullshit advice from bullshit artists like Jordan Peterson himself, who spent his whole life recommending that his patients get on antidepressants.
Half the time I spend with my clients who are depressed is often the 2 years long attempt to get them to tentatively try an antidepressant.
Who spent his whole life going on broadcast television and endorsing these same drugs that cause this same side effect, SSRI antidepressants.
So I take a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which is
SSRI?
Yes, it's like Prozac. I don't take Prozac, but it's similar to that. And I also take a drug called Wellbutrin.
So this is what it looks like, and this is why I'm not terribly competent doing basically anything with any reliability.
Knowing that you're experiencing these symptoms as a side effect of that drug, and the misconceptions still prevalent among the general public and among medical practitioners, misconceptions that have already been debunked as pseudoscience. Look at this very simple diagram. Many medications, legal and illegal, are on the left side of that chart. Okay? Going back to World War I, the military did research on cocaine. You may think of cocaine only in terms of its proven harm, and the harm is very real, the danger is very real. Don't do cocaine. I'm not pro-cocaine, I'm anti-cocaine, but it is in fact a drug that falls on the left-hand side of this very simple diagram, because there are medical benefits. You can use cocaine as a painkiller, and in the type of extreme scenarios that the military has to be prepared for, that's the sort of thing they need to research. You can use cocaine as an appetite suppressant and to achieve endurance if you have men who are exhausted, starving, and injured, but who must climb over a mountain range in the next 24 hours in which to survive. There are in fact arguments for the application of cocaine in the same way that the military uses so-called pep pills, methamphetamines, and what have you, so that a pilot flying an aircraft has a better chance of survival in a scenario where he's had no choice. He's had to fly a plane maybe for 18 hours, 24 hours continuously without sleeping. All right, it's bad, there's harm, but there's also a benefit. Okay, illegal steroid use. There is very real proven harm from steroid use. Don't do steroids. Don't do them. It's bad. I'm not pro-illegal drug. I'm not in favor of any of this stuff. Okay? However, there has been scientific research done into the benefits of steroid use also. I here mean specifically the type of steroids used as performance-enhancing drugs. Some of those same steroids that are used illegally by bodybuilders and athletes, some of them are given to patients who are dying of HIV/AIDS, patients who are slowly dying of wasting disorders, diseases that cause you to waste away, including HIV/AIDS. And they say, hey, look, this person has HIV/AIDS, they may only live for another 5 years, and we can really improve their quality of life by giving them performance-enhancing drugs that are the same drug as steroids used by athletes, and they live a better life for those 5 years or 10 years. And in general, yes, these drugs are also harming them, but in that scenario, the benefit is greater than the harm, and that's the sort of thing we have to consider, right? I have already made so many videos discussing the peer-reviewed, proven science that SSRI antidepressant drugs do not have a proven benefit. They don't. And if you are skeptical about the books and articles that I have cited, the experts who dedicated decades of their lives to researching this, whom I have quoted, if you are skeptical of that, you still have to concede the point that even if some medical doctors claim that there is a benefit, that claim has been unbelievably difficult for them to demonstrate or prove. They have no proof they can appeal to, such as the massive, palpable body of evidence that there is a benefit from using steroids, performance-enhancing drugs, that there is a benefit, for example, from women using the birth control pill. Even though we all have to admit, the birth control pill, female hormonal contraceptive, it also does harm. There are a lot of negative side effects, but there's both a proven medical benefit and not. Okay, the so-called benefits of antidepressants have never been proven in terms of mechanistic or etiological medical science in the way that steroids and the birth control pill, that those have really been proven, okay? There's evidence of benefit for those other drugs. There is no proven benefit for SSRI drugs. And on the contrary, study after study has been debunked as nothing but a placebo effect or an enhanced placebo effect. But the harm is real. And Jordan Peterson went through his whole life recommending that others sign up for this terrible, debunked, pseudoscientific psychiatric treatment. And now he is himself suffering the terrible consequences, some of the most terrible side effects that you can get from years of emotional dependency on psychiatric drugs.
Half the time I spend with my clients who are depressed is often the 2 years long attempt to get them to tentatively try an antidepressant, because they're so guilty that they're relying on an external crutch to sort out their lives that they can't even tolerate it. But I say, well, look, man, what if you had diabetes? You're not going to take your insulin? It's like, try it, for God's sake. You'll know in a month, and you just stop if it doesn't work.
If you look at the published trials, you'll find that 3 out of 4 of them show a significant benefit of drug versus placebo. If you look at the unpublished trials, that shrinks to 12%. Now we had the published trials and the unpublished trials. We put them all together. We did the same kind of analysis that we did before. And we get this nice healthy response on average to being given the antidepressant drug, and an even bigger response on placebo. Now it's the placebo response, not placebo effect, but we know that that counts for relatively little, the spontaneous remission, the natural history. The placebo response is now accounting for 82% of the response to the active drug. And the difference between drug and approval is less than 2 points on the Hamilton scale. Now, the Hamilton scale, you can have scores ranging from 0 to 53 points. You can get a 6-point difference just by changes in sleep patterns with no changes in any other symptom of depression. That's a small difference. And you don't have to take my word for it, because there's an organization in England called the National Institute of Health and Clinical Excellence. The acronym is nice, and they're a very nice organization. What they do is to set treatment guidelines for the National Health Service. And in revising their treatment guidelines, they have established a criteria for clinical significance for saying that a drug is not only statistically but clinically better than a placebo, and that's a 3-point difference on the Hamilton Depression Scale, or an effect size of 0.5. And as you see, that comes nowhere close. So we went back to our data, and we looked at what drugs were the patients in these studies on. Some were on tricyclics, some were on SSRIs, some were on other antidepressants, included MIO inhibitors and things like that. And we found there were some other drugs in there too. There were some studies that were looking at things like barbiturates and benzodiazepam and lithium for unipolar depression, and thyroid medication for people without a thyroid disorder, unipolar depressed patients. And in case after case, 3/4 of the response to the drug was duplicated by placebo. It didn't matter whether it was a tricyclic, an SSRI, some other antidepressant, or even something that's not conventionally considered an antidepressant. And there's yet another drug that we should take into account that I don't have up here, and that is tianeptine. How many of you have heard of tianeptine? Very few. Tianeptine is a drug that has been approved by French regulators, and it is marketed in France and a number of other countries as an antidepressant. The most common antidepressants these days are SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Tianeptine is an SSRI. It's a selective serotonin reuptake enhancer. It is supposed to do exactly the opposite chemically of what SSRIs are supposed to do. Instead of inhibiting the reuptake so that there's more serotonin available in the synapses, it's supposed to enhance reuptake so that there's less serotonin available in the synapses. Were there any truth to the serotonin theory of depression, and I don't know a responsible researcher in the area that still contends there is. It's only in marketing that you still see that talked about. Were there any truth to that? SSRIs should not help people recover from depression. It ought to make them depressed. Here's what it does. In head-to-head trials against both SSRIs and imipramine and tricyclics. So, what do you call pills the effects of which are independent of their chemical composition. And they should be taken with a grain of salt.
Dun, 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 dun.